What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. As you can see, we got Pickles here. She's an old cat, and she has been kind of peeing and pooping on things she's not supposed to. So I'm going to have to try to keep an eye on her. But she's enjoying the desk right now. Aren't you, Pickies? Kind of a gloomy day in New York City today. I want to take my time. I really want to learn to take my time with this podcast. So if you didn't know, I always put some rough topic timestamps in the description. So if you ever want to skip around, you can feel free. What's going on today? What's going on? I've been having trouble. We're going to talk about intuition again in this episode because I got some really good questions about it. And intuition is something that I have been struggling with lately. In the last episode, I gave my spiel on how I think we're best to access our intuition, but I've personally been having trouble with it lately. I keep finding myself not being sure what I really want to do. And it keeps coming up in terms of plans out here in New York City. I'm really overthinking every time I get invited to a party or to go dancing. I really am finding myself in this indecision spiral about trying to calculate the right plan, and it's getting in the way of my intuition. And I feel like a lot of the times, especially since it's winter, things are chill. I'm finding a lot of passion in my work. A lot of the times when I get invited out to go party or dance or do something social, a lot of the times immediately I feel no, I actually want to stay in. I'm feeling kind of reclusive. I'm really excited about my work. I've been working a lot of late nights, not in a toxic way, but in I'm really feeling good about this. I'm excited about this. This is what I want to do way. But then I start wondering am I being lame? Should I make sure I'm putting myself out there? Am I going to make myself depressed if I keep staying in and being alone? This is also coming up in a budding romantic relationship of mine. I'm it's very natural to spend a lot of time with this person, and I keep calculating am I spending too much time with them? Do I need to make sure I'm doing other things with other people? And it's getting so messy, and it's I feel myself really drifting away from this place of clarity that I had after the acid trip at the end of December. And right at the beginning of 2023, I was just so clear. I was so in tune. My intuition was coming right through, and I wasn't even questioning it. There's a scene in a movie called Donnie Darko where his there's this clear tube kind of guiding the character towards different things, and it's making him do different things. And it's sometimes when my intuition is really clear and the clouds of my ego and my calculations have really cleared away, sometimes I almost feel I can see my intuition in that way. It's so obvious and so pure that there is this, it's I can almost see and feel oh, I'm being pulled to leave my apartment to go do this. But then other times it's I cannot see it, and it's very hard, and it's a continual challenge, and it's a training. I guess I'll slip into the reading update here. I've been really thinking about intuition. It's come out on the podcast. It's something I think about greatly. I want to live more intuitively. I don't want to live based on who anyone thinks I should be. I don't even want to live based on who I think I should be. I think that I want to rely on the deeper knowledge of my body and my being. I don't want to calculate through things. I don't want to calculate what job I should take. I don't want to calculate what relationship I should get into. I want to learn how to feel things out very intuitively. So on that theme, I just started reading Intuition by Osho. I'm really fresh into it, so I'm not going to be able to tell you too much about it so far, but you all know that I've been loving Osho, and I'm probably going to blaze through his entire collection. And so far, I like it. One thing I did mark already was a page where he distinguishes between, it's actually the first page, where he distinguishes between the intuition, the intellect, and instinct. I guess I'll just read it. When the body functions spontaneously, that is called instinct. When the soul functions spontaneously, that is called intuition. They are alike and yet far away from each other. Instinct is of the body, and intuition is of the soul. And between the two is the mind, the expert, which never functions spontaneously. Mind means knowledge. Knowledge can never be spontaneous. Instinct is deeper than intellect, and intuition is higher than intellect. Both are beyond the intellect, and both are good. So both instinct and intuition are beyond the intellect. That makes sense to me. And he goes on to explain instinct. Like, instinct is the force that is making your body survive. It's making your blood circulate. It's making you breathe air in and out of your lungs. All of these things are instinctual, right? All of our body things are instinctual. So far in what I've read, it's like he starts to talk about like we need to make sure we're not using the mind to get in the way of our instinct, right? So when you're hungry, you should allow yourself to just eat. When you're sleepy, you should allow yourself to just sleep. This instinct is a deep, deep form of wisdom. This bodily instinct, it's ironclad. We should follow the instinct. When our body tells us to do something like eat or sleep, one of those survival functions, we should just do it. And then intuition, obviously, it's a little bit more complicated. The mind gets in the way of instinct too. Like when we want to go to sleep, we might feel like, oh, it's not time to go to sleep. Like I need to keep working. Or if we want to keep sleeping in the morning, like our body is telling us keep sleeping, we'll be like, oh no, I got to wake up and go to work. Like our mind overrides the instinct. So he begins in the book to talk about how like a way to get in touch with your intuition, that's the soul's purpose. A great way to start getting in touch with your intuition is to stop rejecting your instinct. Let your body do what it needs to do. This is something I really resonate with when I am flowing with my body, going outside into the sun when I need to, sleeping when I need to, eating when I need to. I start to feel very in tune. But when I start to mentally calculate like, it's not time to sleep yet, like I should stay out. And it goes along with what I was saying about the plans out in New York City, and whether I want to stay in or whether I want to go out and party, and whether I want to spend time with a lover or whether I should spend more time with friends to cultivate that side of my life. That I feel like is getting into the realm of intuition. Hopefully Osho is going to help me clarify. I think I have a good grasp on it. It's like I feel like I kind of always know what is right for me, but the mind has a way of really clouding that, really getting in the way. But yeah, if you practice just following your body, following your instinct, I can understand how it will get easier to follow your intuition, because the intuition is this abstract spark, that urge to go somewhere and do something, take some action, to stay in or to go out or to, right? It's like it's this guiding force. I can understand that flexing the muscle of letting your instinct just do its thing without your mind getting in the way of it, I can understand how that can deepen your access to the intuition. So that's what I am learning so far in Osho intuition, and that's just like the first 10th of the book, maybe. I just finished Freedom by Osho. This one, like Intimacy by Osho was like a mind blower, very relevant to my life. I'm a lover. I love relationships. I love love. I love loving people. Intimacy by Osho was a mind blower. It immediately gave me practical ways to improve my relationships. It was a phenomenal book. Phenomenal. I've said it. I've said it over and over again. Freedom, it didn't like explode my mind or anything like that. But it's still good. It's still good. I still recommend it, and I'll try to synthesize it. Basically, he speaks of the deepest form of freedom. Osho defines the deepest form of freedom as spiritual freedom. It's a freedom that happens within oneself, within one's own mind, soul, being, whatever. He argues that political freedom, like freedom from the regime of society, these pale in comparison to spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom is defined by a knowing of oneself, a confidence in one's self, a trust in one's intuition, to the point where you cannot be controlled. You can be physically controlled. Sometimes there's no way around that. Like if you're in prison, you are physically controlled, but there's a form of spiritual freedom that nobody can touch. Nobody can touch. And when you reach that point, you are truly free, because you're going to just follow your innermost truth, your highest good, and nobody can take that away, no matter what they say or what they do. In Freedom, he argues that the true revolution that will bring humanity to world peace and towards a loving planet, towards the end of all war, the only way we are going to get there is with a massive internal revolution, where we all essentially learn to meditate, learn to find peace with ourselves, come to our own spiritual freedom. And when you find spiritual freedom, there's no war, there's no greed, there's no the forces that cause the world to be in chaos will drop away from those individuals. And he talks about how, like, if you have a revolution that involves like physically overthrowing the current regime, that's just another cycle. It's just going to cycle back. Another group will be in power. They are going to become greedy. Another revolution will have to happen. The cycle will continue. But spiritual freedom, individual freedom is on another level. And, this is like thinking on my own here. It's like, this is why the psychedelic movement of the 70s was so threatening to the U.S. government, because like that many people were taking radical drugs. That many people were taking radical drugs of truth at the same time. The Timothy Leary motto of tune in, turn on, drop out, I believe it was. And everyone's seeing the truth for themselves and wanting to just drop out of society to do their own thing. It's very threatening for the government that wants to be in power, that wants to have control over the people. And, maybe we're going to get to a point, who knows if they'll legalize psychedelics. I'm not going to bank on it, but maybe we are collectively growing to a point spiritually where we won't even need psychedelics to have such a revolution. A collective internal revolution where we all realize that we don't want to participate in society's bullshit and we simply make our own way. This is kind of like what freedom is about. Again, like for my direct life right here, like it was an inspiring read. Like I the idea excites me. I like to think that in some way I am playing a part in some sort of internal spiritual revolution or rebellion by sharing my insights on this podcast and on social media. Yeah, that's freedom. Freedom's done. Intuition, I have started. So something that intimacy helped me do is like really open myself and be honest with intimate relationships, lovers, friends, and it's helped me say more uncomfortable things. Like when I feel some tension, like something is wrong in a relationship, maybe a boundary needs to be set, I'm way more comfortable now to put it in the open because intimacy has validated something that I've always known but was scared to practice, that the honest to God truth is more important than protecting the other person's feelings. Like if you really want to connect with someone, you have to be completely truthful. You can't withhold. If something needs to be said but it might offend the other person, you can't withhold it or else it's going to fester. And I'm going to weirdly bring that over to this podcast and my relationship with you all. I feel kind of guilty about the fact that I'm like cutting up this podcast and publicizing little pieces of it on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Particularly on YouTube, I'm taking like sometimes 5 to 10 minute clips, and sometimes I feel bad. I feel guilty that like you are all paying for this podcast, but then parts of it are going out to the public for free. But that like comes to people pleasing. It's like I have to take care of myself, and like publicizing pieces of this truth that I'm able to get out because I have the Patreon community. That is what's going to help me grow this community and hopefully like sustain myself financially. So it's like that little feeling of guilt I feel like is maybe coming from like a people pleasing. I was a big people pleaser, if you didn't know. I feel like I talk about it now and then. Like I was just so used to like making sure everyone around me was happy, and to the neglect of myself. But so I think I'm all right. And I just wanted to share that openly. Like I said, I'm the things I talk about, I'm like always putting them into practice. And that's like an example. Like if this was just one of you and like you were like offended or mad that I was like putting clips from the podcast on YouTube for free, like then we could enter a dialogue and figure it out and find the boundaries. And yeah, and you're all welcome to let me know what you think, but I do feel like it is something that I have to do. And I definitely do feel like by only having the full podcast on Patreon, it's like there is something still special here only for y'all in this community. And this closedness, it is what enables me to get the truth out. When I was like putting everything out to the public, like when I was putting the full podcast out on YouTube, I was really getting in the way of my intuition there. I was like really filtering what came out and making sure it like was suitable for the YouTube algorithm and watch time and clickbait and all these things. And this is really enabling me to just get the truth out. And it's like, I know Ram Dass said like, And maybe one of you actually shared this recently. I feel like I recall a comment where someone shared this recently to me. Ram Dass said, like, the way you serve others is to serve yourself. Like, as a people pleaser, like, I had this internalized idea that I needed to, like, put others first, but there's actually a way where you putting yourself first and working on your own growth is like incidentally, like, harmoniously going to help others. And, like, to bring it to this example, it's like me taking the space I needed by pulling my expression into the Patreon community. It's serving my own growth, right? It's like taking me towards the creative fulfillment that I've always wanted. It's helping me express my truth more freely. So this is work on myself. Like, I'm healing my people pleasing. I'm not trying to prove anything to the public. I'm just expressing freely, sharing the truth. It's feeling good for me. I'm growing and expanding. And hopefully, like, that step I've taken to serve myself then is enabling this truth to come out that I would hope in some way is serving you who are listening, whatever it may be, some spark of inspiration, insight, just maybe all this is serving is a small nudge on your spiritual path, but that is never going to disappear. Once I've done that for one person, it's never going to go away. I think about how Chad, I feel like we had, like, in the range of like 5 to 10 conversations about meditation when I was still very skeptical to even try meditation, to even step foot on the spiritual path. And now that I'm far along, I look back on my conversations with Chad and I'm like, holy shit, like, Chad was one of my gurus. Like, he really played a significant role. Like, that little nudge, his little explanations, him sharing me the meditation app that he uses. He was the one who recommended to me Waking Up by Sam Harris. Like, those little nudges, like, in the scheme of things, have changed the course of my life, And so it's like, yeah, like, this podcast is good for me, and hopefully it's good for the world too. And it's like, I really like that Ram Dass quote, and I probably butchered it a little bit, but it's like, the best thing you can do for others is to be yourself, is to work on yourself and give them the space to work on themselves. So that all came out because I feel guilty about sharing podcast clips. But that's me filling my cup, I need to find more people. If I'm going to do this thing, I got to do it. I wanted to also share the merch. I think I, like, sketchily plugged this in the last episode, and this part might feel a little bit commercially because I'm plugging the merch, but I will get to the questions after this. So right now I'm wearing my Let Be hoodie. It's got a cursive Let Be in my handwriting with a flower on the end of it. And it's got 2 of my drawings of flowers on both sleeves. I've also got a Let Go hoodie. And these are, like, original drawings that I drew. The Let Go one came first. I just drew them in my journal when I was becoming more spiritual. The Let Go one came out when I was, like, really a lot of my spiritual insights came from, like, love and relationships. Like, that was really one of my ways in, and it was learning not to cling to people, learning not to be desperate for the other person to love me, like, learning to let them go if they want to go, like, and in general, it's like learning to let go of my need to control my life and the world around me, and just, like, learning to surrender to the flow of the universe. That's where the Let Go came from. It's got the petal flying off. It's better if you don't cling. It's better if you don't cling. And I think it's cool. Like, this drawing just came out spontaneously. It's like, I'm always talking about Dharma art and, like, spontaneous creativity. It's like, it did come from some source unknown to me. That drawing just came out, and I it's funny thinking about it. Like when I got this, like I wasn't that firm on the spiritual path, but like something drove me to get this tattooed on my body. It's matching with my best friend Danny. Um, and then eventually I made the Let Be drawing and got it tattooed on the other arm. And so I was like, this is like, speaking about this of like my artistic progress, like, I don't know. I used to feel like I had to hire a designer when I did my old skate merch, but it's like, oh, I'm actually like, whatever comes out of me is my art, and I'm much more capable than I ever thought I was, and I just like, it feels so special to have like my own merch with my own designs on the store. And so those the hoodies are available now in a bunch of different colors, and it's just on georgepoulos.com. And my partner, you guys have heard me talk about Julia. She actually designed a t-shirt that says, I am nobody, therefore I can be anybody. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written. Really inspired by like the teachings of Ram Dass and just the idea of letting go of ego. And when you let go of your ego, you really expand to infinity, because when you don't put yourself in the box of a definition, you really can be anybody. And this idea, I am nobody, therefore I can be anybody, it really set me free. It like feels like it's also like one of the first things I kind of started writing about on my TikTok, that really set me off on like the spiritual TikTok. So a very significant sentiment for me, that feeling, I am nobody, therefore I can be anybody, is one of the things that helped me let go of my attachment to the skateboarding channel. It helped me start the spiritual TikTok page, because I really did start to feel like, oh wait, like I'm not this skateboarder. I'm not stuck in anything. Like I'm free. I can make a new TikTok. I can start being the artist I want to be, whatever, expanding my identity in so many ways that we'll continue to talk about on this podcast. Hey, Pickles. You okay? You want to hang out? Can you guys see her? Say hi. Oh. So that there's a t-shirt too. And patrons, you have a 20% discount code in my membership tab. Hey, Pickles. You're so cute. You want to hang out? Come here. Sit down. Sit down, babe. Hey, you want to go? I'm going to open the door for her. Oh, my leg. Oh, fuck. Whoa. All right, sitting in lotus or half lotus for 30 minutes is kind of crazy on the leg. All right, let's get into the questions for this episode. Once again, patrons, I very strongly appreciate... Let me wait for the siren. Once again, patrons, thank you for your beautiful comments and questions. Whenever you hear something I say and you feel like something's nagging you about it, you have a question, chances are like we're all feeling it and it's something important for me to explore too. So please continue letting it rip. I love this community we're building. You can contribute in the comments on Patreon and in the Discord. Oh, I wanted to share, okay, before I get into the questions, hopefully I don't run out of gas. I might have to like make a coffee in the middle of this. I will read what I wrote because I did write this already, but I started feeling, like you guys know how I started feeling like I needed to smash my phone, and then I started feeling like I needed to unfollow everybody on Instagram, and it always took me a while to take those steps. Well, another one that happened to me was I started feeling like I wanted to turn off comments on Instagram. Um, Instagram, I tend to get more toxic comments on, more negative energy, more judgment, more just people like dumping their neuroticism into my comment section, and then I get triggered and it's not good. And then so I started blocking all these people, right? And that was a big step for me. Like, I don't need to allow negative energy into my community. But I started realizing, like, I'm also incessantly refreshing my own posts, like waiting for positive comments. Like, I'm waiting for that positive validation to feel good. And it's like, if I really want to be free as an artist, I think I need to get away from that completely. Like, I shouldn't be. Ideally, I'm strong enough to leave the comments on, let people talk, and just not give a fuck, and I just post and then I move on, and I create because I want to create, and then I move on. But I found myself, one, being crushed and triggered by the negative energy that came in on my posts, and two, and then having to block them. And like, that was a big step, because I'm like, oh, I don't need to listen. I can listen to myself. If I like what I've created, if I've created it for creation's sake, that's it. I can block anyone who wants to bring negative energy into my community. That was a big step, but it's like I would also feel bad if nobody said anything positive. So it's like, you can't rely on either the negative or the positive. You got to find it within yourself. If you really want to be an artist, and you really want to let your truth out, you got to find it within yourself. You can't be relying on external validation at all. So I started getting this like nagging feeling like, oh shit, like, should I just turn off comments? Like, wouldn't that feel good to never even have to wonder what anyone is going to think about my posts? And like it usually goes, when you get a download like this from the source, an idea like this, like, usually I will question it for a while. I'll be like, oh wait, but like, I don't know, like, people might think it's lame, or like I'm being defensive if I turn off my comments. But then, like, over time, it just became more and more obvious. And like, this is an example where I am trusting my intuition. Like, I'm having this feeling, and I'm like, I think it's going to clear a lot of space in my head if I can post something and not have anything come in. Just like nothing, no positive, no friends, no negative, nothing. And then it's like, I don't know. And some of the Instagram reels in particular that do very well, it's like people will just start fighting each other in the comments for no reason. And I'm like, what is this? The comment section can really be like a cesspool of like people dumping their shit and just like being rude because they can. And it's like, I don't think I need to have comments on. And so I did it. I turned off comments on my latest posts, and my new posts are not going to have comments on. Same goes when I'm posting these podcast clips on YouTube. I'm just turning comments off. And it feels so good. I've even turned off story replies. Like, when I shared this sentiment on my Instagram story, which I will read to you, people like responded to my story, like praising it. And I was like, wait, like, the same thing is happening on my story. Like, I feel good about what I posted because people like it. But I think I want to like be creating from my source, like, not, I want to get away from what people think at all. Let me see if I could find this, what I wrote, just to make sure I cover everything. Yeah, man, social media entanglements are part of my journey. It's crazy. Okay, here's what I wrote on my Instagram story. Basically, might just be repeating myself. Wait, but turning off comments on social media posts is strikingly liberating. Not only do I eliminate the ability for judgmental / negative energy to enter my headspace, I also eliminate my hope / expectation for positive validation. I often find myself incessantly refreshing my posts in hopes of seeing positive comments. This feels like a waste of energy, like I am waiting for someone else to tell me that my expression is worthy or valid, because I'm unsure that it is valid within myself. If a negative comment comes, or if no positive comments come, I feel unworthy about my post. Actually, though, I'm free to decide for myself that my expression is worthy and valid. I need no external validation at all. I am totally free to share what I want to share, express what I want to express for its own sake, simply because the desire to share arose. Once I share something, I do not need to sit there waiting to see whether people like it. That's irrelevant. I should move on to the next creation. I more recently had a revelation that I am free to block anyone who leaves a negative comment. I'm free to block anyone on a whim. Turning off comments feels like the next step of this particular journey of healing. Now I'm not waiting for negativity nor positivity. I'm just sharing, pouring out, then moving forward. Yeah, this is like it's like, I feel like when the sun's coming in, maybe you could see it on my face. I feel like it's like, I think awakening, sometimes we see it as this singular thing, and then like boom, like everything opens up, and like I've had awakenings like that, but what I've noticed is that like there are little awakenings in little facets of your life, and as you burn through your karma, like for me with all my entanglements with social media and people pleasing to the public perception, and relying on all these factors of external validation, it's like that is a little awakening about that in particular. And it's like, whoa, when you when you realize that you've been attached to something, and then you realize you're totally free to let go of it. It is just the best feeling. So turning off the comments, turning off the stories, and nothing is permanent. It's like right now, it's like, whoa, like I am free to do this. This is good for me. This is amazing. This is amazing. Like I'm finding confidence within myself. Like I don't need anybody to tell me whether what I'm sharing is good or not. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. How incredible. And then it's like this particular awakening for me was really skyrocketed by shifting to the Patreon, because it's like, okay, like I want to help people. I want to share this stuff because I think it's going to help people. And like I said about the Ram Dass thing, sharing this stuff is helping me grow as well. And through my growth, I want to help others grow. And on the Patreon, it's like, by joining my Patreon, like you are showing me like I want to grow myself. But when I'm sharing something on Instagram, it's like, people see my posts and they think I'm fighting them. And it's like, okay, like I respect for where they are in their journey, but like this is not a fight. Like I'm just trying to flower, express. I'm just trying to pour. There's no fight. And like I like this idea that like we like there can be this dialogue, but like it can't just be everybody. Like it's I think I've used the word like satsang. It's like, this is now a spiritual community. Like we like, even if it's the $3 a month tier for the audio podcast, it's like that shows that you're valuing this, and like that, you know what I'm saying? So then it's like, okay, like there's this level of trust and like compassion, and you're stepping into this community that I am forging as a safe space, and there's going to be no judgment here. And this is good. This is very good, and it's all connected, and y'all are seeing me unfold, and it's amazing. You know, as an artist, my spiritual journey is unfolding. It's really amazing. Shit, do I have the energy for the questions? Let me I'm going to pause. All right. I find this hilarious. I'm back. I bought a coffee for $1 on the corner. Oh. And I just grabbed a pickle. Oh my God. And the sun is shining. I had these questions prepared. I've been going for a while already, but I am trying to learn not to rush. And as I was walking to get this coffee, I was like, wow, this, for some reason, filming this podcast, really fills my cup. And I'm actually feeling chills right now as I'm saying it. It's just crazy. I was kind of in a little bit of a bummy mood today and wasn't sure I was feeling it. And I just feel really good right now. I feel really good right now. And I think I'm just not going to force my answers to these questions to be long. I think it's okay to have short answers, but we'll see what comes out. We're having fun. This is all a big experiment. I like saying that things are just for fun and that they're just an experiment just to see what happens, because it's kind of takes the pressure off, and then it's oh yeah, you could start a YouTube channel or a TikTok or a podcast just for fun, just as an experiment, a little challenge, and then it could change your life, And I like that framing. Sorry if you could hear that. One of my ex-girlfriends hated the sound of me chewing. Every time, every meal, it was a problem. Also, it was such a gloomy day, and now the sun is coming right into my face. Why do I feel like the universe is here? It's it's here. And how does a pickle and a bodega coffee make me so happy? I'm shooting on the worst camera. All right. So, Soren, thank you for your comment. I'm going to read it. I hope that's okay. I would like to hear your perspective on the following question. What happens if the action that the intuition calls for is just straight up unethical? Should you then listen to the calculating voice in your head that tells you it is wrong? Where is the line drawn in the intuition versus calculating dilemma? That's a great question. Really good question. And then I actually got a comment on Instagram before I turned comments off, who said, living a life with only intuition seems scary. I'm the type of person that lives today for my tomorrow. I don't like thinking of the far future, but I like preparing myself for the near future. Not planning for what's ahead doesn't sit too well for me personally. So I'm kind of going to merge those questions. There's a feeling that living intuitively is scary. Following your intuition is scary. And what if your intuition tells you to do something immoral or unethical, like punching someone in the face or stealing, or I don't know, what could it be? So I actually wrote down, immediately when I read these questions, I thought of cutting through spiritual materialism. And I just heard Ram Dass say Trungpa's name, and I'm definitely saying it very wrong. But whatever. Cutting through spiritual materialism. I have a bunch of quotes. I'm going to try to answer just on my own. then I'm going to read the quotes, and then maybe I'll add on to my answer. We're all learning together. I don't know anything. I'm just exploring, just exploring. So whenever I answer questions, I'm not claiming to be an authority. I'm just like, I'm learning together with you. So I'm going to take a bold approach to your question, Soren. I think ethics are defined by the mind, right? If we take the example from Intuition by Osho, ethics come from the intellect, right? They come from the calculating mind. Do we really know what is ethical and what is unethical? Like, here's one example, right? Like, Buddhists believe that sitting down silently to meditate is the greatest good you could do for humanity, because they believe that sitting down to meditate is the best thing you can do to end suffering for all beings, right? But some people are going to see that and decide, actually, they're going to think that actually sitting down to meditate, essentially sitting down to do nothing, while people are hungry, while people are in pain, while people are at war, while people are suffering directly, sitting down to meditate to do nothing is unethical. There are people who are going to think you gotta get in there. You gotta go physically help the situation, right? So it's like, how do you actually determine what is ethical and what is unethical? Because personally, I could see it both ways. I think sitting down to meditate I kind of do think that is the path towards the elimination of suffering. It's like what I learned in Intuition by Osho. It's like, if we all learn the way of meditation, we can change the world into a peaceful and loving world. And in the utopian vision, there's no suffering for any beings. It's all peace and love, right? So it's like, do you go for that fundamental change by meditating, or is that unethical because there's direct suffering here now and you can go volunteer? That's just one example. And then it's like, let's say your intuition, it's complicated, right? Because let's say your intuition tells you to break the law. The laws are not necessarily ethical. The laws were created by someone's mind, and how do they know what's better? How do they know? How does whoever made the laws know what is right and what is wrong? And then let's get into the territory of blatantly unethical. My perspective is that your intuition will never tell you to do something blatantly like evil and harmful, Your intuition might tell you to punch somebody in the face if it's going to protect somebody else, but can your intuition actually tell you to punch someone in the face for no good reason and cause someone harm for no good reason, for no greater purpose? I doubt it. I think we're good in our hearts. That's what I think. And I think if you're following your heart, you're not really going to be driven to do something unethical. And if it feels unethical, that actually might be a mental calculation of your mind. Here's another example. I'm always thinking about relationships. A lot of the times in relationships, I need to say something very honest about how I'm feeling, something that's rubbing me the wrong way. And the immediate mind calculation might be that being honest in this way is unethical because it's going to hurt the other person's feelings. But the intuition is telling me to tell the truth and to hurt their feelings anyway, because the intuition knows that the truth is actually in the long run going to be helpful to both parties. So it's like, when ethics and morality are a thing defined by the mind, it's like, I come back to this feeling that like I've expressed this feeling before that like we're kind of foolish to know what is best for our lives. Like we're foolish to think our mental calculations are smarter than the callings of our heart, you know, to lead us to the greatest life we can have. And I think it could be the same for intuition. It's like it's kind of silly to think that our minds know what is ethical and what is moral as opposed to our intuition. Maybe our intuition actually knows far better. And then let me address, before I get into the quotes, is living intuitively scary? Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, like my intuition is not telling me to get a safe, steady, secure 9-to-5 job. It's not even telling me to continue taking brand deals. My intuition is actually telling me to stop making money so I can pursue my true art. So living intuitively is scary. But I'm taking my spirituality to the extreme where it's like, I'm talking like Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Like, let's be here now. Let's be here now. I want to be awake in this present moment right here, right now. I want to be happy and joyous and loving here. I don't want to be thinking about that next moment. And like, let me actually read my response to that comment because I think I said it pretty well. I said, our intuition is very wise and complex. If planning is in our highest good, our intuition will guide us to plan. But planning can easily become obsessive and neurotic. This I want to be careful of. But I don't think I believe in cutting out planning completely. I still have ideas for my future and things I want, a vision for a beautiful life in my future. I still put things on the calendar. I think this is okay and can be done while living intuitively. Everything in balance. I certainly treat these things like plans more lightly these days, more like guides, less strict, and I'm open to change, and I know fully that life may not go according to plan, and there's nothing wrong with that. Life not going according to plan could even be more beautiful than what was planned for. Planning can be good in balance. Openness to what may happen regardless of the plans feels very important. That was my like initial thought after I read the living intuitively is scary comment. And I think it's true. Like I do want to manifest a more spiritually aligned, a more peaceful, a more joyous, a more creatively fulfilling life for myself. But I think that it's like I'm coming to this view of life as like this present moment right here is morphing. It's less of this timeline. I think I've shared this idea before. It's less of this timeline and I'm on this point here and here is the future. It's more like this point right here is the present and this point is going to unfold and flower into the future, right? But it's all here. It's all here. So I say fuck it. Like, fuck it if it's scary. Like, it's not worth it to me to betray my intuition for security of the future. And and what's interesting about it is like I'm pretty damn confident that like these scary again is defined by the intellect, by the mind, by the ego. The scary steps that I'm taking, I think that since I'm following my intuition, I'm actually going to have a far better future than I could have possibly imagined if I was listening to that fear and planning for a more secure future. So I hope that kind of makes sense. Pickle break. Now let me just read the quotes that I wrote down. These were more in tune with the question about ethics. What if your intuition tells you to do something unethical? And I'm reading from Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. First page I noted is page 20. You must allow yourself to trust in your own intelligence. We are tremendous people. We have tremendous things in us. We simply have to let ourselves be. In my episode about intuition, I use the term blind faith, so I'm going to keep reading this because he addresses it. Faith could be simple-minded, trusting, blind faith, or it could be definite confidence which cannot be destroyed. Blind faith has no inspiration. It is very naive. It is not creative, though not exactly destructive. In the case of faith as confidence, there is a living reason to be confident. You do not expect that there will be a prefabricated solution mysteriously presented to you. You work with existing situations without fear, without any doubt about involving yourself. This approach is extremely creative and positive. If you have definite confidence, you're so sure of yourself that you do not have to check yourself. It is absolute confidence, real understanding of what is going on now. Therefore, you do not hesitate to follow other paths or deal in whatever way is necessary with each new situation, right? So it's like, I think when you are tapped into that intuition and you're really here now, it's like when the moment arises, there's no need to calculate what is ethical because you're simply following, you're simply acting, right? And I love when Trungpa talks about creative response. Like you're responding creatively to the moment. It's not necessarily instinctual, right? It's like, it's a little bit more towards intuition. And, hopefully Osho is going to further clarify how we get there. But it's like, the am I being ethical is actually a hesitation and a lack of confidence when you put it this way. There's one quote. Let's do more. Page 87. Okay, here's a good one. Question. When you feel angry, should you just express that anger in order to open? Answer. One sec. When we speak of opening and surrendering, as for instance, in the case of anger, it does not mean we should actually go out and hit someone on the spot. That seems to be more a way of feeding ego rather than a way of exposing your anger properly. It is a matter of seeing the basic quality of the situation as it is rather than trying to do something with it. Of course, if one is completely open to the situation without any preconceptions, then one would know which action is right and which is unskillful. If a particular course of action would be clumsy and unskilled, then you would not take that fork in the road. You would take the road of skillful and creative action. You are not really involved with judgment as such, but you choose the creative way. Right? So you feel anger. If you're not calculating mentally what to do in the situation, what Trungpa is saying is that you're going to respond creatively as it is needed, I think it's like it's almost like cutting through whether something is ethical or not. It's like, it's actually you're just trusting that what you're going to do is right. Let's go to page 106. Okay. Excuse me. Pickle burps. You do not constantly have to manage yourself. You must disown rather than attempt to maintain control. Trust yourself rather than check yourself. So I would argue that the trying or worrying about being ethical or non-ethical is an attempt to maintain control of yourself. It's a holding on, it's a clinging. The more you try to check yourself, the greater the possibility of interrupting the natural play and growth of the situation. Even if what you are doing is chancy, even if it seems possible that the whole affair will blow up and become distorted, you do not worry about it, right? So listening to your intuition really is an act of surrendering into the situation. Okay, question. What happens when someone creates a situation and you do worry about it? Answer. Worrying does not help at all. In fact, it makes things worse. I love the directness. I love this. It seems the process we are talking about requires some sort of fearlessness. Yes, very much so. It is positive thinking, the mentality of wealth. What if you feel the necessity for a violent act in order to ultimately do good for a person? Answer: you just do it. Love that. See, it is fearless. It's a fearless trust, an intuitive trust. But what if you are not at that point of true compassion and wisdom? Answer: you do not question or worry about your wisdom. You just do whatever is required. The situation you are facing is itself profound enough to be regarded as knowledge. You do not need secondary resources of information. You do not need reinforcement or guidelines for action. Reinforcement is provided by the situation automatically. When things must be conducted in a tough manner, you just do it because the situation demands your response. You do not impose toughness, you are just an instrument. You are just an instrument of the situation. That was pretty spot on in terms of addressing, like, what if you need to do something unethical? It's like, you're not really if you're in this situation, you're not really thinking about that. You just do what is required. Let's go to page 162. Okay. Inspired motivation comes from something beyond thought, something beyond the conceptualized ideas of good and bad, desirable and undesirable. So I would argue ethical or non-ethical, moral or non-moral falls into the bucket of conceptualized idea. Beyond thought, there is a kind of intelligence which is our basic nature, our background, and intuitive, there's the word, intuitive, primordial intelligence, a feeling of space, a creative, open way of dealing with situations. This kind of motivation is not intellectual, it is intuitive, precise. I don't think I really need to be adding on because that feels perfect. Let's go to page 173 to 175. Are we in class, y'all? Is this class? Okay. Sorry, y'all. I'm having pickle burps. I hope you're cool with us just like chilling and relaxing together. If a bodhisattva is completely selfish, a completely open person, then he will act according to openness, will not have to follow rules. Again, when I hear like, am I being ethical, that feels like a rule. He will simply fall into patterns. It is impossible for the bodhisattva to destroy or harm other people because he embodies transcendental generosity. He just acts in accordance with what is. He never runs into unexpected problems, never creates chaos in a destructive way. Even if life seems to be chaotic, he just falls in, participates in the chaos, and somehow things sort themselves out. The bodhisattva is able to cross the river, so to speak, without falling into its turbulence. If we are completely open, not watching ourselves at all, but being completely open and communicating with situations as they are. Let me start that over. If we are completely open, not watching ourselves at all, but being completely open and communicating with situations as they are, then action is pure, absolute, superior. However, if we attempt to achieve pure conduct through effort, our action will be clumsy. I don't know about y'all, but like this book, reading these words, it's like blowing my mind right open. It's like kind of fucked. In the case of the bodhisattva, his whole action is flowing. There is no rigidity at all. Everything just fits into place as if someone had taken years and years to figure out the whole situation. The bodhisattva does not act in a premeditated way. He just communicates. He starts from the generosity of openness and falls into the pattern of the situation. It is an often used metaphor that the bodhisattva's conduct is like the walk of an elephant. Elephants do not hurry. They just walk slowly and surely through the jungle, one step after the other. I think the idea here is that like when you're intuitive, when you're in the moment, when you're responding creatively, like the concept of wrong, unethical, good, bad, right, none of that exists because you've actually, if you're really here now, you've actually transcended all of those labels. And like if you trust that you yourself have a good heart, it's like your intuition will not make you harm someone, or do something harmful. Unless it's really what's required for the higher good. Let's see. Was that all the quotes? One more on page 182. And guys, this is an example of why it's really important to write in my books, because to find all these quotes, like when I saw the question about intuition, I just knew from remembering the book generally that like this book would have good quotes. And like everything I'm reading, I had already underlined. So it was like extremely easy to like, I would say it took me like 30 minutes to find all of these. Okay. Last quote, I think. Previously, you impose your version of reality onto life, rather than seeing things as they are. So when this kind of veil is removed, you see the situation as it is. Then you can communicate with it properly and fully. You do not have to force yourself to do anything at all. There is a continual exchange, a continual dance. It is similar to the sun shining and plants growing. The sun has no desire to create the vegetation. Plants simply react to the sunlight, and the situation develops naturally. Your actions become exceedingly accurate because they are spontaneous. Someone asks, do situations ever call for aggressive action? Answer, I don't think so, because aggressive action is generally connected with defending oneself. If the situation has the quality of nowness, of precision, it never gets out of hand. Then there is no need to control it to defend oneself. Okay, and I had one more quote that's actually regarding that question about how living intuitively is scary and like I want to think about the future, etc. This is page 203. In the case of enlightened people, they do not plan for the future because they have no desire to provide security for themselves. They do not need to know the pattern of the future anymore. They have conquered the preconception of future. They are fully in the now. The now has the potential of the future in it as well as that of the past. Enlightened people have completely mastered the restless and paranoid activities of mind. They are completely fully in the moment. Therefore, they are free from sowing further seeds of karma. When the future comes, they do not see it as a result of their good deeds in the past. They see it as present all the time, so they do not create any further chain reactions. Enlightenment is being awake in the nowness. I think I said that earlier, and that quote must have been in my head. So yeah, how about that? I just opened to this page. Why not? I'm just gonna read this because I was talking a little bit about relationships. There is another kind of love and compassion, a third way. Just be what you are. This is very much parallel with Osho intimacy. You do not reduce yourself to the level of an infant, nor do you demand that another person leap into your lap. You simply be what you are in the world and life. If you can be what you are, external situations will become as they are automatically. Then you can communicate directly and accurately, not indulging in any kind of nonsense, any kind of emotional or philosophical or psychological interpretation. The third way is a balanced way of openness and communication, which automatically allows tremendous space, room for creative development, space in which to dance and exchange. Compassion means that we do not play the game of hypocrisy or self-deception. For instance, if we want something from someone and we say, "I love you," often we are hoping that we will be able to lure them into our territory, over to our side. This kind of proselytizing love is extremely limited. You should love me, even if you hate me, because I am filled with love, am high on love, am completely intoxicated. What does it mean? Simply that the other person should march into your territory because you say that you love him, that you are not going to harm him. It is very fishy. If you really love me as I am, why do you want me to enter your territory? Why this issue of territory and demands at all? Okay, this is opening another can of beans. So those were the quotes that I found relevant to the questions on intuition. And I was going to do another question about meditating through physical pain that Caroline asked, but I think I'm burning out, so I'm going to put that back on the list for later. Yeah, my mouth is like viciously watering. I need to eat some food. But this was amazing. I hope you found the discussion helpful, insightful, inspiring in some way. If you have any questions, let them out. Let them out on the Discord and in the Patreon comments. Again, this is totally a non-judgmental community. Anything you say will be valued and welcomed. And feel free to talk to each other in the Discord. And yeah. Have a good one, y'all.